This is the power when we go to a retreat or we go on vacation or we go to an event that is transformational in nature. We open the door for us to see ourselves and our lives and what it is that we're prioritizing with a completely new frame of reference. It's like hitting the pause button so that you can suddenly look around and say, oh, what's going on? Did I choose this? Is this what I really want? All right. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to She Rises. So I don't know if it's just me or if it's something in the air right now, and I'm totally going through a spring cleaning kind of moment, and maybe you can relate a little bit. This is in definite some way related to the fact that I just went and did this beautiful yoga retreat down in Little Corn Island, Nicaragua. And for those of you who don't know, that's a tiny little island off the Caribbean side of the coast of Nicaragua. And I have to say that there was something that I remembered while I was there that I had forgotten. And it is playing like a mantra in my head lately. It is just going through and through. It's something that I feel like I knew a long time ago and then somewhere along the way kind of forgot about. And it's definitely coming up a lot for me right now. So I'm going to share a little bit about that. Before I do, I just want to let you know that I am struggling through a small sore throat. So if you hear me ah-ing or sipping some water, that is why. But with all of that to say, I came back and a few things started to happen in pretty short order. I realized how much of a subtle stress I had allowed to come into my life and to run my everyday routine. And I would say on a general basis that I'm pretty grounded. I'm very regular. I have a very steady routine. I do the same things every day. And, I have my priorities laid out. I'm very, very clear that way in my business, in my personal life, all the way through. Those things are always sitting there. I'm aware of them. And I live into them. But I had not realized before going away that I had allowed a certain amount of stress to come into my day-to-day experience. And not just stress, but a feeling of I have to do this rather than I get to do this. And I'm sure that you've heard of that change of phrase before, the I get to versus the I have to. But it suddenly hit this brand new meaning for me that I had allowed it to change. I had allowed the I get to flip into the I have to. And it had happened without me knowing that it had happened. It took me going away for 10 days to a completely different environment and really uprooting myself from my typical patterns and typical day-to-day operation, and then coming back for me to notice what had happened. And this is the power of immersive experiences. When we go to a retreat or we go on vacation or we go to an event that is transformational in nature, we open the door for us to see ourselves and our lives and what it is that we're prioritizing with a completely new frame of reference. It's like hitting the pause button on everything that you're doing in your life so that you can suddenly look around and say, oh, what's going on? Did I choose this? Is this what I really want? Am I happy with the trajectory that this is going? Is this in alignment for me? And I think that most of us, when we're living our lives. We're busy. We have a lot of competing priorities that we have to navigate, whether that's work or family or people around us, whatever it might be. There's a lot of different things going on that we're navigating. So like from a business perspective, we could say that it's working in the business versus working on the business. And from a life perspective, it's you're in the throes of life, you're in the busyness of life, rather than stepping back and assessing, is this what I actually love? Did I sign up for this? If I only have an undetermined amount of time left to be putting towards this, would I stay the course that I'm on, or would I make some changes? And I always have to bring it back to this, what if this was what if we don't know how much time we have? What if this is our last year? What if this is, because in reality, when we put it in that framework, it often makes us really stop and think about what it is that we're doing and if it's something that we want to continue doing. So when I came back, I started to cancel subscriptions. I started to look at where I was investing my time, and I made a few changes on where I was showing up and how much time I was giving certain things. I started to look at the relationships again in my life and say, which relationships do I really value? Which ones do I want to be investing more in? What about the ones with my kids? What about certain friends that I have? What about the business? When I look at my business, what is it that I want to be really showing up for? In what capacity? What degree? And is that going to continue to align with the goals that I've set for myself? So it was like my mind did this total backflip where everything got put into perspective again. And I realized that certain things that I had been neglecting needed to come back on the table, and certain things that had somehow weaseled their way onto my plate, I was going to toss them in the garbage. And so that type of reflection really comes when we have the opportunity to hit that pause button and slow down and say what's really important, what really matters, and what brings me joy, what brings me happiness, what brings me excitement, what brings me to a state of feeling fulfilled in my life. And so, shameless plug here, I do have 2 events that are coming up. They're in-person events here in Spruce Grove. One of them is for women entrepreneurs. I'm very passionate about connecting women in business and supporting women in being able to balance their lives, their personal lives with their business, and achieve the goals that they have. So that's Elevate Your Business. It's coming up April 11th and 12th here in Spruce Grove. And then I also have another event coming up in May, which is for women in general who are looking for that connection, looking for greater fulfillment. Maybe they simply feel stuck and they want to get themselves out of that rut, or they're just asking themselves, okay, I feel like I've hit my maximum, like I've plateaued, or I just feel like there's something more. I'm supposed to be doing something more, but I'm not maybe quite sure what or how. Then that's Elevate. That Elevate is for you. And that's May 2nd and 3rd. So those are going to be some links at the bottom of this so that you can go check those out. But beyond all of that, essentially, we stay in the busyness. We stay in the busyness of our lives. So I wanted to ask you a question. When you start your day, do you know what it is that you're living that day for? First and foremost, do you take a moment to pause and to look forward into the day and to project how it is that you want it to be, to pre-decide what kind of a day you're going to have? This is one of the most powerful opportunities that we have. And it's basically the focus of what I'm talking about today, which is just that in the morning, the very first thing that we can do if we wanted to is to get really, really quiet before you pick up your phone. And this is a big one because phones have become our alarms for most people. So the phone is already in your hand before you've even half opened your eyes. So this is a big one. But before you pick up your phone, before you go check the news, before you check social media, before you go and do your workout, before you go and attend to the needs of your spouse or your kids or anything else around you, before you make your coffee, there's an opportunity to dive as deeply as you can into your own heart, your own awareness. There's an opportunity for you to dive to the part of you that feels very timeless, that doesn't necessarily have a role that it's playing out, that doesn't necessarily have a clear-cut identity. That part of you is not a business person. That part of you is not a mother or a daughter or a spouse. That part of you is this quiet, eternal, ephemeral part of you, this awareness, this consciousness that's living inside of you that gets to just pause for a moment and say, what is the most important thing in the world right now? What is it that I want this day to be like? Who am I? And that part of you can start to set a new tone and a new trajectory for how the day is about to unfold. It's the difference between starting your day in chaos, where there's instantaneously demands being placed on your time and on your energy and on who you have to be and what the world needs from you, and starting your day in regulation, grounded fulfillment, feeling spacious, feeling whole, feeling calm. It is that difference. And there's something to be said for starting to look at the patterns that you're living out, because our beliefs, who we see ourselves to be, what we really think about ourselves, and the things that we think are important in life, we will give those the opportunity to drive us from the moment that we wake up if we don't take this conscious moment to pause and say, where do I want to place my energy today? What's important? Who am I choosing to be today? Before anybody has any demand on me, before anybody is asking who I'm going to be and what I need to do. It seems small, but this pause is the difference between how the day unfolds. And so I would love to know your feedback on that. I would love to see some comments in the YouTube comments on this, or in the Apple comments, so that I can respond to that. Have you ever taken this time? And if you are taking this time, what kind of a difference does this make for you in your life? Because our lives are oftentimes living us. Before you know it, you wake up, you open your eyes, and you're 25, 35, 45, 55, 65 years old. And it's like, where did the time go? Right? Where did the time go? The number one thing that you'll hear people say when they're talking about something that happened 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, they'll say, where did the time go? I can't believe how big your kids are. I can't believe it feels like it was just yesterday. Feels like it was just yesterday. We were all playing in the backyard, having a barbecue. Now the kids are, grown up, they're moving out, or they're off, they're busy with their friends, and, now what? Where are we now? Or whatever dynamic of that, whatever parallel to that you experience in your own life. Time is the one thing that we cannot pin down, because we constantly live in the future or in the past. And the present moment often gets missed. It doesn't get our full attention. We're planning for what's going to come, or we're thinking about where we've been. But this moment, this day that's right in front of us, is this most amazing gift. It is the only time we truly have. And it is the time where we can make the decisions that are going to move our business forward, or we can make the decisions that are going to bring peace finally into our hearts, bring fulfillment in. We get to decide how this day is going to unfold. And as we empower ourselves to show up in the morning a certain way, and to show up with a certain attitude, a certain energy, a certain awareness of what's possible, we can train that into ourselves. I was having a conversation with somebody yesterday, and we were talking about how we are wired biologically for safety. The nervous system is constantly scanning the environment, looking for threats. It's looking for the next thing that's going to come in. And it is designed to keep us safe. All the nervous system has ever really wanted to do is just make sure that you and I survive one more day on this planet, that we make it to tomorrow. And it will go to great lengths to protect us. The problem is that whatever has been developed within our nervous system as children has been reinforced also by society, telling us what's safe and what's not safe. And nowadays, like if you look at how the nervous system perceives the world around us, there are very few environments that truly feel restful and safe. Think about it. When you go to your work, it's usually a stressful environment. There are not many work environments that are calm, regulated, grounded. If anything, and being a massage therapist for many years, I had lots of people on the table. And, when you're in a massage, a lot of times people will talk about kind of the things going on. I don't remember hearing a single person tell me how relaxing their job was. And if you think about it, like that's just not a common thing that you're going to hear, is that my job is relaxing or calming or regulating. If anything, it can be a source of stress. It's the thing that drives you up the wall. There's never enough time. Everything was needed to be done yesterday. And even though we have various systems inside of us that help us to navigate that stress, for the most part, then you look at, kids, or the activities that kids are in, or, you look at grocery store. You go to the grocery store, you look at the pricing, on that, or you go and fill up your car with gas and you look at the pricing on that and it's like, oh my gosh, we're in this dynamic right now in the world where our nervous systems don't have a lot of safe spaces to go. And so the triggering of cortisol within our system being dumped in from the sympathetic nervous system that is looking at the world as a stressful place to be, it does not have the ability, it's not conscious. It doesn't have the ability to say, oh, you know what, that's stressful, but it's not like the stress of a bear chasing you through the forest. It just sees it as stress. It doesn't care where the stress came from. It doesn't matter to it that the stress is coming from your work, or it's coming from you being in traffic, or it's coming from the grocery store bill. It just sees it as stress. It dumps the cortisol into your system. The body starts moving into that fight or flight, and the whole reaction plays out. And this happens over and over and over again. So to have restful spaces that are not inherent within society, the only way to create that is to create that. The only way to find yourself in those spaces is literally for you to start finding a way to regulate your nervous system, down regulate your nervous system, and learn how to recognize your way of being when you go into a fight or flight, or how you are triggered, to see your own responses to things. And this comes back to awareness. And when I'm talking about starting the day with that conscious part of you that isn't bound to any role, that there has been no expectation placed upon yet, I'm talking about diving into awareness, that it starts with you being in the present moment, you being as aware as you possibly can be of yourself and who and what you are beyond the roles and the expectations and the consistent patterns that are going on outside. There is a part of you that exists that is not bound by any of that. And that part of you can start to show up in the present moment when the stress wants to rise up because of the circumstances around. And that part of you can say, do we have to react that way to this? Do we have to go into stress mode, fight or flight mode? Or is there another option? Is there another way? We know that the answer is yes. There are ways that we can start to downregulate. You can start to take deep breaths. You can tell yourself, just breathe, take a few deep breaths so that I can get a little bit of distance between what just happened and my response, so that I can start to create and cultivate a response that's true from within, not just a reaction. I want an actual response to come through. You can start to move yourself into a different environment. You can go outside. You can start to say, okay, this isn't the way that I want to be responding. Let me find another way. Let me journal it out for 5 minutes. We do not have to live life the way that we think we do. We do not have to live life the way that 99% of the people out there are living their lives. If we do not want to, we can choose to start to master this part of ourselves that has been kind of running the show all this time. We essentially are walking nervous systems. But when we start to take the power back from the automatic nervous system, the autonomic nervous system, and we say, I want to have a choice in how I'm responding to this. I don't want to go into the I have to mode with my life. I want to be in the I get to mode of my life. That the circumstances that I find myself in and the people I'm connecting with, that is by choice, and that it feels elevated, that it's something that really inspires me, that it lights me up, that I love the work that I do, or at least I know that the work I'm doing has some impact and it's positive in the world, that the legacy I'm leaving behind is a good one. So these are our choices. This is where we get to start to empower ourselves and start to look and say, where am I starting this day from? Am I starting with awareness? So, it was quite shocking to me to come back and see that I had allowed this layer of stress to infiltrate almost every aspect of my life. And, to flip my life on its head, not that I changed a whole bunch of external things. It's not something that probably most people would notice. But to me, the lived experience is now very different because I'm now consciously aware of where I was allowing stress to drive me and to drive my actions in the world, my behaviors, and how I was feeling about my life in some senses, the feeling about certain things that were going on. This power that we each have to direct our will and our intention and our consciousness throughout the day, it is a superpower. And it is the one thing that will make a difference, because how you show up and your conscious awareness and how you're showing up is going to have an impact on how you act, and ultimately not just the actions and the outcomes, but how you feel about your life at the end of the day, how you feel about yourself at the end of the day. Whether you have an energy and an attitude of gratitude when you're sitting down at 8 o'clock at night looking at everything that happened in the day, and that feeling of fulfillment, that everything is good, that you wouldn't have changed anything about your day. That's it. Like what more would we want than at the end of every day to feel that was a day well lived and you wouldn't change anything? Can we have more days like that, please? That is what we have the potential to create. That is the rhythm that is possible. The circumstances around us are what they are. How we interpret the circumstances, how we interpret the things that are happening, and our relationship with them, that is on us. That is something that we get to decide. That is where our power lies. So ultimately, the essence of this is, first thing in the morning, I invite you to dive into a practice where you just become as aware as you possibly can from the very start of your day. You allow yourself to get quiet or to get still. You touch the part of you inside that knows. There is a part of you that is at peace. There is a part of you that is already free. There's a part of you that is completely okay. And that part of you exists because it exists in every single one of us, every single person on this planet. If peace is ever possible, the only time we can ever achieve it is now, not in some future moment, because this is the only moment that actually exists in real time. So that means it's as available for you right now as it's ever going to be. And if you dive into that and you truly take this on and just start spending just a few moments at the beginning of your day connecting with this eternal part of you, there's going to be a change in your frequency. There's going to be a shift in how you show up, a shift in your response. You're going to start to see things differently. And I guarantee you it's worth trying. And I would love to hear your feedback on it. Don't just take my word for it. Never take my word for it. Please put it into practice. Let me know if this is something that actually makes a difference for you in your life. And I hope that you have many more days where at the end of the day, you look back and you say, that was a life and a day well lived, and I wouldn't change anything. So wishing you the most beautiful, wonderful day, and I will see you very soon.